Welcome to Not Just Ads, the show where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the Creator Economy for B2B. Hi, and welcome to Not Just Ads. On today's episode, I'm joined by Colin Day. Colin is the Managing Director for EMEA for Oktopost. He's previously held roles in FIS and also in SunGard, leading their marketing globally. He's over 35 years B2B marketing experience, and he's deeply embedded in the social media strategy, employee advocacy, and B2B MarTech. And also recently launched a book, congratulations, on the Social B2B Organization, How to Build Relationships, Drive Revenue, and Lead in the Digital Age. Colin, it's a pleasure to speak with you today. Thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Marcus. Look forward to the conversation.
Maybe you could give me a little bit of an insight, because you're talking to a lot of companies that are leaning more into social and that are in the B2B space. What are the key things at the moment that are working that you're seeing traditional B2B organizations lean more into? What do you see that's working, and where do you see that there's more opportunity for them to really double down on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And look, if we think of social media as a channel, right, it's now fundamentally changed the way that buyers are behaving, right? So today's B2B buyers complete most of their purchasing decision ever before they engage with sales. And I think the latest statistic is upwards of 57% of the sales process is complete right before the company ever knows that there's an opportunity on the table. So you've got to then ask your question, where are they getting their information from, right? They're researching solutions, they're reading reviews, they're engaging through thought leadership on platforms such as LinkedIn. Yeah, and this means that businesses need to go and meet their buyers where they are on social channels and build authentic relationships through valuable content and engagement. And that's where the content creator really comes into it. It's no longer about broadcasting a message, but it's about creating a meaningful two-way conversation that's built upon trust and that ultimately influences decisions.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned there about trust, and it's I think it's quite common knowledge that, like, you know, an individual has a much higher reach. I know that you did some research. I think you said it was 7x. LinkedIn say that it's more than 10x. So it's significantly more with an individual than it is with a company page. How do you think when you're building employee advocacy programs in companies, how do you balance that in terms of like giving the employee the liberty or the freedom to post, but also ensuring then that they're kind of like representing the brand accurately?
Yeah, and that's a great question as well. For me, it's about educating the employee what's the best way and the right way to behave on social media channels. We're not all well versed.
Yeah.
In that fashion or in that way. So I think it comes as a responsibility to the brand to be able to educate, to be able to guide. And I think that's where advocacy programs really come into their own, because they become that safe space, right? They become the way for a marketing team or whoever's responsible for the program in the organization, and it's typically a marketing team, to be able to create the initial copy that we want the employees to share, but given the freedom and the ability to be able to turn it into their own tone of voice, right? The way that you speak may be very different to the way that I speak. The way that my marketers speak here at Oktopost are very different because they're Americans and they love to put Zs in really strange places in words. They're also a different generation to me, and they love to use two things: exclamation marks almost at the end of every sentence. And I was always taught that if you use an exclamation mark, you're almost shouting, right? And emojis. And I'm a 54-year-old man, and my kids would be mortified if Dad started to put emojis out on his social posts, right? So, the tone that I speak in is very different to others within inside the organization, and maybe very different to the brand. Where the advocacy program, works is it gives me that safety blanket, right? It's like that I can take pre-curated content, and I can tailor it and change it to my own tone of voice. I can put my own thought leadership around it, add my own value to that, and then it's like post it out knowing that the image is on brand, the copy at least started from a brand position.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. When you work with some of your clients, then like, what do you think normally is the best approach or best strategy in terms of, like, let's say you're talking to a B2B brand, it's a CMO or it's someone from the C-suite, and they say, look, we think there's a big opportunity here and we want to be guided in terms of how we go about this. But how do they really get, like, what do you see as being the best approach of getting everybody on board? And I mean that from C-suite, also the whole way down to like IC, sales teams, marketing teams, etc.
Yeah, and another great question, but you hit the nail on the head when you said C-suite, right? It has to start at the top, right? This isn't, let me build the critical mass, right? It's like, down in rank and file. And then it's like, hey, as a leadership team, we go do whatever we want, right? It has to permutate down because, the C-suite are really the transformation vehicle, right? It's like, they are the instigators of change. If your executive turns up with a presence on social, right? Sounds authentic. Yeah, hopefully they are authentic, right? But, sounds authentic and, does it consistently, then everyone else wants to follow, right?
Yeah.
So a social first strategy, and that's something that Daniel and I talk about in the book, right? Really starts at the top of the organization and it's the whole organization that needs to get behind it.
Yeah. What does that look like that you see? Because I think now as well, especially in the last maybe 18 months or so, you've probably seen this on LinkedIn yourself. Like, we see people from very regulated industries sharing like very authentic videos. Like, one example I saw was the president of Blackstone, the financial group, and he's sharing videos of himself running wherever he's, like when he's on work trips and stuff, running in different parts of the world. Like, if we were to having this conversation about 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't think like someone heading up a financial institution would be sharing that kind of content on LinkedIn. But I guess that encourages people maybe within that organization to say like, okay, look, this is acceptable and this is kind of the culture and so on. So I just wonder from what you see with the clients that you work with and they have that involvement with C-suite, what's the kind of the tone of the content or like the type of the content that seems to be getting like engagement or reactions or like impact as well?
Yeah, and that's a great question as well, Marcus, right? And interestingly that you pick up on video. Right?
Yeah,
and you mentioned content, right? So like, from a LinkedIn perspective, right? More and more focus is being placed on short form video these days. I think statistically, some of the stats that I've heard from the teams that I work with over at LinkedIn, right, is that video is the fastest growing, media type, right, on LinkedIn, upwards of 40% growth over the last 6 months as a minimum, and that talks to how, as a generation or as a world, we've changed the way that we consume information, right? My kids, all four of them, ages 28 down to 10, I'm not sure they watch commercial TV anymore, right? It's like, the BBC and the IT of this world. I think that more and more of their consumption is done through YouTube or through TikTok or other platforms do exist, right? But the way that we consume, right, it's like information this day and age has changed. And I think, from a LinkedIn perspective, some of the other stats I've seen is that the best performing videos are somewhere between 12 seconds and 30 seconds in length, right? Yep. So, I've got as the creator of content or as the curator of content, right? If video is the way to go, the way today, is a very short. Yep. Right. So, I need to be able to get my message across, right, in a very authentic and very quick fashion. So is that, jogging around the streets of New York or the streets of London or Frankfurt or wherever it may be? Maybe. Yeah. Right? Because it certainly shows the human side, right, of the individual whilst they're portraying their message. And what works best is authentic, original content, whether that be written form, whether it be written and still image, whether it be video. And different cohorts of consumer, will pay different attention to each of those that type of material, whether it be written, whether it be still, whether it be video, whether it be still and written.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
But one thing there, though, on the skill side of things, right, on the image side of things, yeah, content that has between 2 and 4 images, right, rather than just one individual image, yeah, it seems to perform currently better than having just an individual image. So having multiple images, if you're using still and or photography and the written word, right, having multiple images certainly performs better than having an individual, and an individual performs better than having none.
Yeah, I guess it's more dynamic. Yeah. And then just like in terms of the companies that you work with, when you work, and we go into the book that you wrote in a moment, which is really interesting. But like when you start working with a client, like what's normally, if you go in and they see that there's an opportunity there, what's normally the first kind of things that you do in order to kind of get them in the right direction, get them going? What would be the first things to do, like when you analyze and so on? But like what are the kind of the key tips that you would normally give them?
Yeah, so look, having a formal advocacy program, right?
Yep.
So like, for me, when I've deployed these on the consumer side, on the business side, you know, myself previously, right, in my role at FIS or before that at SunGard, right? It's the size of the cohort of advocates that you've got, right? And, you know, from our experience here at Oktopost, an advocacy program works best, yeah, when you've got around 50 people, right, minimum within inside that that collective, right? And typically what you'll see is around 25% of the employee base, yeah, make for good advocates.
Yep.
Right. So simple maths. I mean, that's one reason why we focus on organizations that are 200 plus employees. Right.
Yeah.
I'm a simple guy. Quarter of that gives me 50, right? So
Sure.
that, you know, that's why we look to work in that space. But yeah, we're very much focused on B2B. We're 100% you know, B2B. If you look to our install base, and when we say B2B, we mean our customers are also other businesses. Some people call that B2B2B. Technology, financial services, business and professional services, so legal, accounting, consulting, and manufacturing. That's our sweet spot.
Yeah. And with those, when you say about 50, like within the organization, are you seeing now any companies that you're working with for a while, working with B2B creators as well, that kind of align with the vision or the product that they're selling or the service they're offering? Yeah.
So it's a growing, I don't want to say trend, because trend makes it sound like, you know, they're queuing up, you know, round the block, right?
Yeah.
There's a growing movement. Right.
Yeah.
So, I still think it's very, very early, right? And describe or a circle around what's a B2B influencer, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you've got different spectrums, as within the B2C space.
Yeah.
People that are paid because they've got a very large following, to, you know, people that are brand ambassadors, right? They want to jump on board and you know, they're a client, and you know, they want to advocate for the company that they're working with.
Yeah.
So at Oktopost, we're probably more focused on finding those genuine voices in the market that want to advocate for the brand because they've worked with us, or they work with us, and they know the value that we can bring, rather than go and find someone that we pay to advertise on our behalf.
Yeah. So there's a clear alignment there, that there's a relationship already established.
Correct. Yeah. And look, it's always been the case, right, that the best advertisers for your brand are your customers.
Yeah.
Right. You know, because it demonstrates customer loyalty, which means that, you know, they're going to be with you for a journey and for the long term, and they're invested in your success. And it's far easier.
Yeah.
And far cheaper to get an existing customer to buy from you than it is to go and find a net.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'd like to talk to you a bit about the book. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions on the book as well.
This one here.
Yeah. There it is, exactly.
I've got a copy for you, Marcus. So I'll have to get your address and send it over.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. Just before I go into the details of the book itself, but just give me a little bit feel for how the idea came around. And I think for the listeners as well, is the thing about writing a book. I know that you co-written it, but I'd just like to just get a little bit of an understanding in terms of how the idea came around and the process of writing it.
The process of writing it was very difficult when you've got a co-author, but we'll get into that in a minute, Marcus. But you know, what was the genesis behind the book? We were looking at you know, our own brand story here at Oktopost,
Yep.
And as we were going through that brand story, and we were working with an external agency at the time, they said, "What book would you write? What would the title of the book be? And that will help us direct the brand story." And that's where Daniel Kushner, who's the co-author, he's also the CEO of Oktopost. That's when we looked at each other and we're like, "It's easy. It's the Social B2B Organization, right?" And
Yep.
we're like, "That would be the title of our book." And then we're like, bucket list. We've always wanted to write a book. Let's do it together. This is going to be easy, right? It's like, I've been in the industry for 35 years. Daniel's a little bit younger than me, but not much, right? So collectively, we've almost got 70 years of experience. God, that makes you sound old, right?
Experienced.
This has got to be easy. Daniel, you start writing chapter 1. I'll do chapter 2. You do 3. I do 4. You do all the way out to the end of the book. So that's what we did. We, went into our caves and started typing away. And then we're like, "We're ready. Let's bring it together." And then we look at it and we're like, "Holy cow. You write in a very, very different way to me." Yeah. So when we tried to bring those chapters together, it's like, we had to go through some creativity and maybe rewrite 1 or 2 of them so that it was cohesive and sounded logical and methodical. So the writing of the book was relatively easy and relatively quick because we've got a lot of knowledge between the 2 of us. I think it took us about 6 months to come up with the manuscript. It's everything else that goes around with it, Marcus. It's like the cover design, the spine design, the layout of the book, the copy editing, the proofreading, and it's like all of a sudden it becomes a cast of thousands. We took the book out to a publishing house or 2, and we said, "Look, here's the manuscript." They're like, "Yeah, great. It looks well written. It's like reads well. It's like you've done a great job. Yeah, we'll take it. When do you want to launch?" And we're like, This is about December, right, of last year. We're like, we want to go March. They're like, "What, March of 26?" And we're like, no, March of 25. And they're like, no way. If you put it with us, it's going to take us a year to at least to get it ready to go out. And we're like, "No, don't worry, we'll self-publish." And that's exactly what we've done. So
Great.
Print on demand through Kindle Direct Publishing. Others do exist, but that's the model we've used, and it's working wonders. We got
Great.
number 2 on Amazon bestseller.
Fantastic. Congratulations. And then just a couple of things, actually, like a couple of follow-up questions around the book itself. So you and Daniel wrote it, as you mentioned. One of the points in it really you mentioned was around kind of like you help leaders align teams, build trust, lead with a social first mindset. If you're to look at that, like, and if you're to kind of like, even if you want to include some examples, but like, what do you think truly means socially first organization structurally and culturally? Like, how do you think that would look? If you want to share any examples as well, I'm sure the audience would love to hear.
Yeah, look, and you could go onto the Oktopost website, because I'm going to say that all of the customers that are case studies, so oktopost.com/case study, I think is
Great. We'll link it to the show notes as well.
Perfect. There's some great examples there, right? So like, the likes of IFS, not to be confused with my former employer of FIS, IFS, right? And what Oliver and the CMO and the team have done there, right? He's truly like, best in class, right? It's like the whole, from the leadership down to the most junior individual, they're all involved in an employee advocacy program, right? Beyond Bank, in Australia, it's like another great case study on that website. They're driving their customer success and customer management program and strategy through social on LinkedIn. Others do exist, but through LinkedIn, and the way that they're using a platform such as Oktopost to support that. HL, right? The list can go on, right? There's a number of them out there, and we've recently recognized some of them. Not always. It doesn't have to be an Oktopost customer. There are examples of great socially first organizations that are not using the Oktopost platform, and we've tried to recognize some of them recently in the Rising 30 award, right?
Which I saw, actually, really, really interesting.
And that's a great example, right, of influencer marketing, right, in B2B, because the amount of pickup that actually got on networks such as LinkedIn has really helped elevate our brand presence.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things you mentioned as well was around like employee advocacy being the secret weapon for B2B marketing. And one of the challenges, I guess, is like that when you go in and you initially launch, there's a big buzz, everyone is on board, but then like 3 months in, it's like, how do you maintain that momentum? It's like, the trough, and like what tactics or what do you recommend to try and kind of like keep the momentum going, that there's a consistency there? And when that comes about, what recommendations would you give?
Yeah, outside of bribery, Marcus, a few other tips and tricks, right? So like, look, as an employee, right? So like, as an advocate, right? Sometimes it's hard for me to understand what's in it for me. And given that majority or an organization, typically their best advocates are client-facing people that may be revenue-focused. Yeah. So therefore, if they're revenue focused, maybe they're on the sales team. Others, product and development and HR, they all have a part to play, right? But from a sales perspective, salespeople can be pretty fickle and easily tempted. Right, so like they'll compete over a stick of gum, right? Like for bragging rights to say I'm top of the leaderboard, right? So gamification has a strong place to play, Marcus, right? So being able to educate the advocate on what's in it for them, right? So like hey, guess what? I'm going to give you a set of pre-approved content that I think is ready and fit for purpose for you to share. It's not all going to be brand content. Right. And I'll get into that in a minute. But, it's going to be relevant to your audience. And I think it's going to help you present yourself as a thought leader in your respective space.
Yep.
Then as your employer, guess what? Right, I'm going to be able to now tap into the reach that you've got, because you said that people are 7 to 10 times more likely to engage with a post on a personal profile than they are on a corporate page. Likewise, people are 10 times more likely to convert, whatever a conversion may be, right? Go fill out a LinkedIn form, go to the website, go register for this event, right? They're 10 times more likely to take that conversion step. So as your employer, right, I'm getting a bigger reach than I'm getting on my own corporate page, right? I'm getting better engagement rate in that content. Yeah, and I'm getting a better conversion rate off the back end. That's why I'm invested as the employer. And then as the employee, what I'm helping you do is to create your market stall in order to portray yourself or expand your reach as a thought leader, right?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
On the content side, right, it's not all about branded content. I'd always use 3 statistics: 50%, 25%, 25%. So good employee advocacy programs, 50% of the content that goes onto or into the employees for them to share, would be first party, right? Brand generated. 25% of it being general industry thought leadership material. So maybe a Forrester or a Gartner or an IDC report that's talking about something that's relevant to our industry. Yeah, others do exist, and other content is out there, right? And then 25%, what I would class as general interest material, right? It could be something to do with the cartoonist, right, and those cartoons that he puts out, right? So like that's great material for a marketing technology company to distribute, right? It shows a little bit of a fun side and a humorous side, but general interest material. So 50, 25, 25. I think that then starts to generate or keep the interest of the individual to share, because they can find something in that stuff that's relevant.
Yeah, and it mixes it up a bit as well. The message is not repeated the whole time. It makes it a bit more dynamic, like what you mentioned as well about the different formats as well at the beginning. One of the other things as well was around pipeline influence is a big theme in the book. What social actions like velocity or intent, anything you see as like kind of leading indicators that people, that CMOs or even heads of social or even B2B organizations, like someone outside marketing, that can be reflected to them from, say, social media, that can actually potentially be a leading indicator to an opportunity or a business impact?
Yeah. So look, as a CMO and as a former CMO myself, right? It's like I was always charged with 2 things, right? 2 things kept me awake at night. How do I put more quality leads into the top of the sales funnel? Yeah. And then how do I demonstrate the value of marketing to the wider audience, right? Because if everything's going great, then guess what? Sales get all the credit. Yeah. And when
Yep.
everything's bad, the CTO always comes knocking on my door saying, can I have some money back, please? Cut your headcount, cut your tech spend, right? So, as a CMO, they're the two things that keep the CMO awake, right? So, if you think of that then from an organic social perspective, where does social play? Yeah, we spoke about building trust. Yeah. And for B2B, the sales cycle is so much longer than the B2C, and it's not, transactional, right? It's like you either want a pair of trainers or you don't.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily wake up one day and say, hey, do you know what? I want to go and buy a core banking system, or I want to go and buy, right? It's a process, right? And
yeah, exactly.
Also, it's not one person that you're selling to, right? It's like, there are upwards of typically 12 people in any buying committee in a B2B purchase these days. So, I've got to keep, as the brand or as the seller, or as the organization, I've got to try and reach out, to everyone in that buying committee, and I've got to keep my brand, in front of them, and I've got to become that trusted advisor. How do I do that? Best way to do it is on social, right? Best way to do it is organic, because if I tap into that collective network, right, the connected employee base is typically 10 times the reach of the brand itself, right? If you think of that, so that's why social is so important to putting more quality into the top of the sales funnel. And then it comes down to the metrics and measurement, right? Of as that flows through, I've got to be able to connect, social engagement to revenue.
Yep.
And if I can do that, right, I can then demonstrate the value, that the entire marketing chain is having on the revenue of the organization.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's probably the big challenge, I guess, is that point of what you mentioned, like the actual action in terms of you can see that someone is engaged at something, but it's like how joining up the two and linking the two to revenue further down the line, especially with the sales cycle so long.
Yep.
But it's that component,
that's
like
where
if you're not
revenue reporting comes into it as well, right?
Exactly.
So, it's like there are the tools and capabilities out there, be it in Oktopost or be it in other platforms.
Yeah.
And that's really where if we think of organic social historically, right? It's been somewhat fuzzy metrics, right? It's been more from a brand, right? It's like brand awareness, brand perception. Right, is this post, how many likes, comments, shares, right, or reshares did this post get, right, which is great. But as a CMO, that tells me nothing. It just tells me that I've got reach, and I've got engagement, but it doesn't do that, go that last mile to be able to connect it to revenue, which is what I really need to be able to do, in order to justify the investment that the business is making in marketing as a whole. And that's really where the likes of Oktopost and the LinkedIn opportunity reporting really comes into it.
Yeah, definitely. Just final question then is predictions for the future in terms of B2B social. Where do you see it going over the next 6 to 18 months? Any trends or any predictions?
Yeah, so I'm going to get my crystal ball out, right? And some of this maybe needs to be covered by some form of forward-looking statement, but I'm not going to give you that, Marcus, right? Because it's not my forward-looking statement. But I think there's going to be more focus on video. We're seeing that now, right? Yep. More focus on short-form video content and being able to empower the social team to be able to create that themselves, right? In order to remove some of the investment that CMOs need to make today in order to get these productions done. Because, as I said at the top of the session, currently, and this may change over the coming weeks and months and years, but currently it's about 12 seconds to 30 seconds is the optimal content length, right? I don't need a big production team to be able to do that. I can get capabilities inside the marketing technology stack somewhere, or even ideally in the social engagement suite somewhere, to be able to create that content, or take long form content and create evergreen short form from it. Then that's going to be valuable, right? So I think there's going to be more focus on short form video. I also think that we would be remiss if we didn't bring AI into play in some way, shape or form. Whether it be agentic, right? So, using or building AI agents in order to support the social activities of either the advocate or the marketer up front. So like from a content creation perspective, from a reporting perspective, I think all of that comes into play as well, right? Calls out to third party large language models, or whether it be purpose built large language models by the vendor or partner that the organization's working with. So AI has a place. It's not going away. Is it going to replace jobs? I think it's not going to take the marketer's job away. I think it's going to redefine how marketing does marketing. And I think that's a key thing. And that's why I say agentic, right? If I can use a number of agents to supplement the work that I'm doing, then guess what? It's like, I'm able to go and focus on more revenue generating or more high production, high quality activities.
Yeah.
So AI and video, I think, are going to be key things, and then it's going to be always the hunt to connect that to revenue, to demonstrate the value of the organization.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Colin, thanks again for joining us. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Like, I would give them the name of the local pub that I hang out at, but I think that would be inappropriate, Marcus. But you can find me on what is my LinkedIn handle? I think it's C-Day, but we'll put the link out there as well.
Perfect.
Right, Marcus? But best place to find me is on LinkedIn.
Great. And the book is The Social B2B Organization. We'll leave the link as well in Amazon where they can find it. And Colin, thanks again for joining the show. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Thanks for having me on. If any of that resonates, please come find me on LinkedIn and let's connect and continue the conversation.
Thanks again, Colin.